Amazing year for Coach Breschi. See if I can do it this way. And Joe, I know on behalf of FCA, we just want to say congrats on not only winning the national championship, but I think yesterday you were named NCAA Coach of the Year.
Thank you.
Now, Joe has not been prepped on any of these questions, so good luck. Here we go. Now, and I'm going to ask some questions, as the flyer said, about life and lacrosse and family and faith. And it'll be an honor to hear Joe share some of these thoughts. But just an opening question, Joe, and you don't have to explain the whole season, but when you think about this past year's season, what goes through your mind? I know that's not an easy question, but
so much, really. You know, when you think about the young men in the program and how they grew, and you know, it's interesting because you sit here and hear these wonderful stories from Brian and Gordon and yourself, and you hear about their growth in faith. It's almost like a team, where guys kind of go through the ups and downs of a program and a season, and the wins and losses, tough practices, classes, etc., and you see their growth and development. And it's impressive to see how 18 to 22-year-olds can come together and maybe not have the most talent in the world as a team or individually, but as a team they came together, they bonded, and their faith grew in a different way in one another. And it was impressive to see that journey take place and to be a part of it. So the real win at the end isn't about the hardware, but to see the journey that these young men took and the growth and maturity that they went through over the course of the season. And that was the most impressive part of 2016.
I know I was blessed and fortunate to have a son on that team and 2 nephews, and we'll talk maybe about that and some other things as we go. But if you were to use one word to describe the past year, what would it be? And as I say that, I'm looking at John Gordon, who helped write this best-selling book called One Word. I don't even know if you've seen it, Coach, but one word that'll change your life. Him and a couple FCA guys, Dan Britton and Jimmy Page, wrote it. It's really a great book. If you haven't got it, we have a few copies up here. But if you were to use one word to describe the season, what would it be?
First, John, I read the book. So, and I think I got it from Gail.
Okay.
So I would say the one word would be trust. You know, and that was one of the values I actually spoke about last night to the coaches, was trust. And I think when you talk about that, the team came up with 5 values that they wanted the season to be about, and trust was the number one. And that was trust in one another, trust in each other, the guy next to the right and the guy to the left, and having faith in the coaching staff, and the coaching staff having faith in the young men out on the field who have to produce and perform. And you could see it grow over the course of the season. And you know, trust became a huge part of our run in May. And it was fun to see that maturity and that development.
Great. Well, I'm going to take you back a little bit to the beginning in a way. A lot of us know you grew up here in Baltimore. You couldn't get into Calvert Hall, so you went to Loyola High School.
It wasn't recruiting.
Joe went to Loyola, great high school in the Baltimore area. But 2 questions in one. How did you first get introduced to the game of lacrosse? And just tell us a little bit about your high school career.
Well, it's funny that I played baseball all the way up through 8th grade. And my father was helping with the baseball team and coaching the baseball team. He wanted me to play baseball at Loyola. And I was the 15th Breschi to go to Loyola, so I had no chance to go to Calvert Hall, even if I wanted to. But I played baseball. My brother had always played lacrosse, and I thought it was interesting because you get to hit people with sticks. And so I didn't know much about it. I never picked up a stick until the summer before my freshman year to go to Loyola, and it was at Camp Skylamar up in Maine. I worked as a camp waiter, so I was able to participate. So in all the different athletic teams, so they actually threw me in the goal. Said, good luck. And I took a few pops and I said I would never play the goalie position again. So I went to Loyola, actually played, tried out for the freshman team, didn't play baseball, much to my father's dismay there. But I wanted to follow my brother's footsteps a little bit and try lacrosse. So I tried out for the freshman team, and I was cut. And I thought to myself, okay, so you have a choice to make. Do I just shut down lacrosse and go play baseball, or go to a rec team and see if I can develop my game? So sure enough, I went out and played rec lacrosse my freshman year in high school. And that's how I started with the game. And then sophomore year, I tried out for JV, and I'm to this day convinced that I made the team. If any of you know a young man named Garth Apel, he was on the JV, he was a freshman at the time, and he was our star player. But I had shot up about 5-6 inches, so I was able to go over the head and have over the head checks on him. And the coach kept me on the team so I could play against him and punch the sky. And I'm convinced I made the team because of that. Didn't start, didn't play at all, but got in at cleanup time at the end of the game. And then JV or junior year, tried out for varsity, and John Halls was my coach at the defensive end. And great story, because there is a plan. And John was a Carolina graduate. And I went out to practice for about 3 weeks, and we have our first scrimmage coming up. And the young man who was in front of me, a guy named John Jeppy, was a senior. I was a junior, so I was a crease defenseman. So back then, you had crease defenseman. I was slow, I couldn't move, my stick was terrible. So I could stay, but I was big. I played football, lacrosse, so I was big. I could hang around the middle and hit people if they came in the area. That's what I was told to do. It's great. So I'm sitting in there, and John Jeppy, the week before the first scrimmage, okay, it was like a Monday. We have our first scrimmage on Thursday. John Jeppy's shoelace breaks on his cleats. And he said, "Coach, I got to run in and get my cleats, another pair of cleats." So Coach Hall says, "Go ahead." He said, "Breschi, get in there." I never left for the next 2 years. So I started junior year and I started senior year, and I was fortunate being recruited in senior year, April, went on my visit. Now, get this, April of my senior year, I go on a recruiting trip to North Carolina and get an opportunity to go to Chapel Hill and play for Willie Scruggs. So true story, because of the shoelace, I'm here today. Pretty incredible.
That's awesome. Well, that's my next question is, what led you to UNC as a player in the 1980s? So the follow-up question there, is there a highlight or two from your playing days at UNC that come to mind?
So many, just having the opportunity to play with the guys that we were part of. I should have redshirted freshman year. I played 3 minutes and had 3 penalties. But Dave Klarman liked the toughness. I think there are a lot. I think one of the big moments, and Coach Scruggs, I don't know if anybody was at the Hall of Fame last night, but Willie Scruggs talked about the 90 team. I was fortunate enough to be the only captain of that 1990 team. And to see him in his last game as a collegiate coach at Carolina, in the locker room after the game, in tears, along with all the seniors who knew it was their last run after we lost to Syracuse in the semifinals. But just to be around that group of brothers that were together and been through so much, and to maybe not end Coach's career on a high with a win, but also have the opportunity to just be there and knowing how much he meant to the program, the family, and the history of Carolina lacrosse was probably the biggest moment.
That's great. Well, I was there last night. We got to kind of present Coach Scruggs, who gave a speech, and someone else who was honored last night was the late Buddy Beermore. And I know his wife Phyllis is here, and his son Jimmy. Jimmy did a phenomenal job accepting the award on behalf of his dad and family. And I know it was a number of years ago, FCA did a small little booklet, a track called "What Makes an All-American." And it's really about the story of Buddy. There's a handful of them on your table. So I encourage you to take this and read it, and maybe give it to a friend. It was interesting. Buddy passed this past year, and Phyllis had called and said, "Hey, I remember this little booklet, What Makes an All-American? Buddy's in it. Frank, any way you can pull them together?" I think we had 500 of them at the funeral, but there were like 700 people there, so people are still asking. I know for Buddy, I'll never forget that funeral service. The minister talked about his favorite verse being being in Revelations, I think 3:21, but behold, Jesus said, behold, I stand at the door and knock. And if you hear my voice and open the door, I'll come into your life and I'll fellowship with you, I'll walk with you. And the minister made that reference to the fact that the Lord had knocked on Buddy's doors of his heart and all of our hearts for years. But Buddy was 53 or 54 when he opened that door. And his faith became real and exciting. And I know he was one of the coaches honored last night as well. So, but Joe, when did you realize you wanted to be a coach? You know, and why did you choose this as a profession?
Well, it's funny. After I graduated in 1990, it just so happened Coach Scruggs, as I mentioned, his last season there, Dave Klarman was the defensive coordinator, and he became the head coach. And he asked me, he said, you know, Breschi, you want to stay around and coach one more year, or coach for a year with me? I said, absolutely, Coach, love to do it. Don't want to rush into the real world. And sure enough, I had the opportunity under Dave Klarman and coach with Robbie Russell and Chip Mayer. And our first year, we were 16-0, won the national championship in 1991. I said, this is unbelievable. Although I was getting paid $2,000 and had 2 other jobs, back then, here's the beauty of back then. And again, I see all the coaches in here who have been coaches for a long time. And you know, I would work at a health spa for till about noon, delivered papers, and then went to the golf course, met Dave Klarman. At 1 o'clock, we played 9 holes with the 4 coaches. We figured out the practice plan each hole, and then we went over to Finley Field at 3 o'clock for practice. That was our day. And we were 16-0, won the national championship. I was like, this is a pretty good life. And John Swafford came in after we won the national championship, our athletic director at the time, and he said, congratulations, you're now making $4,000 a year. So we got a 100% raise, and good things were happening. I stuck it out for 1 more year, and I thought I was going to get out. And we had beaten Brown University in the quarterfinals, and Pete Lasagna, Dom Starchy goes to Virginia, Pete Lasagna takes over at Brown, and he hires me to be the defensive coordinator. So I went up there and, for $24,000 in benefits, which was great, and started my career up there really full-time as an assistant coach, 5 years with Pete Lasagna, which was fantastic. And then had the opportunity in 98 to go to the Ohio State University, where really it all started. I want to share a quick story about that. After my first year, and I think this is where my faith started as well. Not that it wasn't there growing up in a Irish Catholic school family, and going to Immaculate Conception, and then Loyola High School and so forth. But you know, after my first year, because I went in as a 28-year-old head coach at Ohio State, and just a terrific program, but I had my chest out. I was like, I'm a head coach for the first time. I'm going to act like a head coach. And after year 1, we had individual meetings with our guys all the time, and I still remember Toby Mink, who came up to me in our meeting, and he said, Coach, we love your passion. We love your energy. We love everything about what you bring, but we don't know you. And to me, that like, you talk about hitting the heartstrings right there, we don't know you. And when I think about my faith, I think exactly that. Like, I was going through the motions of my faith and not really knowing who God was, and not building that relationship and walking that journey with him. And from that moment on, with Toby Mink, everything changed in my life. And I still credit him. And a matter of fact, we have the same birthday, April 9th. He's 20 years younger, but just an unbelievable moment in my coaching career, saying, you know what, I have to be myself. In order to relate with these kids, because they see right through you. You have to be yourself in everything you do, in your walk with Christ and your walk with your journey with the young men you touch on a daily basis. And you know, that was an incredible 11 years. I had a great opportunity to coach with Nick Myers, and you know, we started a Bible study at the Ohio State University, and you know, just like it started at North Carolina, we started with 2 or 3 kids, and my goal was to open the door to their faith and just have an opportunity. And it was Coach Myers, myself, and maybe 2 or 3 young men on our team, and suddenly it grew to 10, 15, 20, and it was just God's grace at work. And it's done the same thing at the University of North Carolina. So I want to thank Coach Myers as well, because I think we walked our journey together as well.
We're hoping to get Coach Myers to be our guest speaker at the U.S. Lacrosse Coaches Convention in January. I know he's going to be in speaking, and if the schedule allows, I know he's going to try to do it. But when was the first time you ever went to something like a Bible study, a coach's Bible study, or a small group? And what did that feel like to you coming out of your faith background?
Well, at Ohio State, it was Coach Jim Tressel was actually a huge influence for myself and certainly our staff. He had a Bible study with his football staff and invited us, and I think that was a really cool opportunity for us to sit down and spend some time with him, learn about God, continue to walk in faith and learn more. I mean, you know, I think we're all on a journey. I think that's the beauty of it, and the beauty of the experience that we're going through, and everybody's different and different in their faith. So that's really where it started, Athletes in Action at Ohio State, and you know, and then the opportunity to hear the young men and hear their growth as well is pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, I know during your time at Ohio State in 98 to 2008, you and Julie were blessed with 5 children. I think Michael was born in 2000, Sam in 2001, Abigail in 2003, then Lucy in 2005, and then Emily in 2007. So the water's very fertile in Columbus, Ohio.
Well, people said all you have to do is look at her. She's pregnant.
So 5 kids in a relatively short period of time. And you know, I know, you know, many of us have heard this story. You know, Michael passed away tragically in 2004 as a 3-year-old, your only son. And you know, what impact did Michael's death and that tragedy have on your life and on your faith?
Well, I could certainly talk about my son Michael for a long time here, and I love speaking about him because it's such a huge part of my life, our life, Julie, and who is certainly the rock of our family, and my 4 beautiful girls who, you know, we talk about Michael. We have pictures up in the house and talk about him all the time, and you know, they certainly miss him as do we. But his impact on our life has been just incredible. You know, there's so many ways to I don't know where to begin actually. But his death, really the arms of and I questioned my faith. I questioned why. But at the end of the day, you know, God swooped us all up, my entire family, and really embraced all of us, along with the Ohio State community, and took us under their wing, and you know, and allowed us to continue to live our life. I still remember to this day the person we met with, the psychologist we met with, and therapist said, you have 2 ways to go. You can continue to live your life, and because you've lost 1 child, or you're going to lose your wife. And at that time, we had 2 kids, Sam and Abby. Do you want to lose them as well? And to me, that was as powerful a message that hit my heartstrings right from the get-go. And I said, there is no way. There is no way. And so we seek to help, not only of therapy, but also of faith in God. And he wrapped his arms around us and said, you're going to continue to live your life. You're going to send a message about how important it is to love your kids, your wife, appreciate every day you have. Fortunate for me, we're able to keep Michael's memory alive with scholarships, and the Ohio State University has a scholarship. We play Ohio State, and again, many thanks to Coach Myers, who has allowed Mike's memory to live on at Ohio State University with that scholarship, but also the MRB weekend that's Brian Kelly hosts at Calvert Hall for us. And the scholarship is one of the, if not the largest, one of the largest memorial scholarships at the Ohio State University to this day. And you know, he has touched and he has touched so many lives in so many ways and so many young men. I think that's the coolest part, is that the young men at Ohio State and the young men at North Carolina have been touched in incredible ways by this little boy who was 3.5 when he passed. But his message, and I think that Coach Myers and myself have a wonderful platform to send Mike's message to so many young men who are talk about appreciating your life and appreciating the opportunities you have every day, and to tell your parents you love them, and your friends you love them, your teammates you love them, and because we aren't here very long. And the reason we're able to do that, and my wife and I are able to continue to live our life, is because we know we're only on this earth for a very short time, and pretty soon we're going to be, hopefully not too soon, we'll be with Mike in paradise one day soon.
Right. I know, Joe, you had a little tradition with Michael, a thumbs up. Can you just explain how that came about, what that means to you today?
Yeah, one of those moments which was pretty key was back when he was a little boy. I would read to him when he was going to bed, and my goal was always to practice in the morning. So if I was able to practice in the morning, I was home at dinner at night with the girls and Michael, and you know, whether it was bath time or reading time or etc., I would be there for the family, and we'd have dinner together. And to me, that's the most important thing, is the family piece. So every night we'd read a book, and as I was walking out one night, Mike was about 2 at the time, he said, "Dad, thumbs up." And that's where thumbs up kind of started. Every night we'd read a book, and he'd give me the thumbs up. And so that kind of carried on to our team after he passed. And still to this day, when we had the MRB event at Calvert Hall in the fall, it became a major part of that weekend, the thumbs up weekend. So the other piece to that, and this is where I think the Carolina family has embraced the entire, because I didn't, you know, that's a lot to put on young men. But Mike became a part of the Carolina family. Not only was he, these guys heard about Mike and heard about the experiences at Ohio State, where the scholarship was for a senior at Ohio State, but for our guys this year to kind of go through this experience together and to really embrace Mike's spirit this year was incredible. And it was never more evident than when we played Notre Dame in the quarterfinals at The Ohio State University. If you had an opportunity to see that game, behind the scenes, Mike the cemetery is about 20 minutes from the Horseshoe where we played. And we get there, we have our practice in the morning, and in the afternoon before dinner, Coach Myers came over and picked me up, and we went out to visit Mike at the cemetery for about 45 minutes. Well, that night we come back, we have a team meal in a room like this, and we're all sitting around, and I usually get up and give a Newt Rockne speech about how we're going to do this and that to Notre Dame, and I just stood up and I said, "Man, I'm speaking from the heart. Thank you. Thank you for bringing me back and having an opportunity to visit Mike at the cemetery." And the fact, and this is God's hand at work, the fact that Ohio State for the first time ever hosted a quarterfinal event, the fact that we were put in that bracket, the fact that we won up in Marquette in the snow, and the opportunity to come to The Ohio State University, and these young men did all this, and had an opportunity for me to go visit Mike at the cemetery and spend time and praying to God, and having that experience was just incredible. And I thanked the men that night, and in the morning, in one of the most emotional, and this young man is as steady as it gets, Patrick Kelly stood up, our captain, number 2, and he stood up at breakfast, and we don't really talk at breakfast. We say, "Here's what we're doing, here's the plan." Guys are pretty fired up, they're juiced, and he stood up and said, "Coach, can I say something?" And he said, "Coach, I know how much this means to you." And he said, "But none of us in this room would be here if it wasn't for you bringing us here. And what we're going to do for Michael, and we're going to do for your family, is take you to your first Final Four." And tears were in the room, and I have never seen a team play as hard and tough as they did, and they did it all for Mike.
I know I was blessed to be a witness from the outside looking in, and just thank the Lord. Is there any other thought or story from the national championship run that comes to your mind?
Well, along those lines with thumbs up, and I think this is where my wife Julie really, kind of brought her to tears, was with the ebbs and flows of that game in the national championship, where we were twice down 2 goals in the second half, 9-7 and 13-11. The sidelines, and again, this is something I didn't see until after the game, but my wife saw it, and she was so impressed by the young men and how Mike's spirit had taken over, that every time we had a huddle and we're walking back, the men had their thumbs up. And it was Mike's spirit. I mean, there was a lot. God was there. I mean, he was there. And he was surrounding our team, and his spirit, the angels were there, I'm convinced. And there were so many things. You had the 91 team celebrating their 25-year anniversary, and the only man that was missing was a man who passed a year ago, Stephen Muir, whose number was 32. And I say the number 32 for a reason. At the end of the game, we scored in the 32nd minute of the second half, so 2 minutes into overtime, with 32 seconds off the penalty in overtime on our 32nd shot of the game. And that's pretty impressive. And you think about angels, and you think about the things that were taking place during that game, God's hand, and those Michael, Stephen, so many people.
Right, and Steve Muir was on the first ever FCA team in 1992, and without him, we would not have defeated this 2-time defending champ Green Turtle team that had Dave Petramala, Gary Gate, Jimmy Bearmore over there, and all these legends. So God allowed us to win in double overtime, and Steve Muir was our workhorse midi. And I know that first ever FCA team had a huge influence on his life, and I believe his family's and those he came in contact with. And then, here it was, last year he passed, and I know there were a lot of people wearing 32 in the stands, and very emotional and very powerful. I know we can talk forever. Maybe just 2 more questions. Do you have a favorite scripture, a life verse, or favorite scripture that comes to mind for you? I know Brian shared one this morning.
I don't have one offhand. I think for me, I have an opportunity to bring my kids to Mass every Sunday, and I'll do the same thing tomorrow. And for me, it's really about the kids' growth and our children, and their continued faith, along with Julie and mine, and knowing that someday we're gonna be in paradise with Mike.
I am going to shift back to one more question about the lacrosse. I don't know that I should, but coming down the home stretch, I can't help. My dad's here. He was at that first ever game in '92 out in Vail, first ever FCA team. He's been at me and my brother's games. He's been at, between me and my brothers, we have 21 kids, 15 boys. A number of them have played for Joe 4, and there's a number coming. But can you explain how in the world my dad ended up on the sideline of the Final Four?
Well, BF and I had a deal, and when I met, or when I talked to BF when I got the job, it was one, I can't remember the exact time, but the great thing about BF, he gives you the bear hug every time he sees you. And during that hug, I said, look, when we get to the Final Four, I want you on the sidelines. This was 8 years ago, my first month on the job. And I remember giving him a call, and I left him a message. He didn't pick up, and I left him a message saying, BF, we finally made it to the Final Four after all these years, and I want to pay up on my, on my promise to have you on the sidelines if you're interested. And it was funny because I think his son said, he's not really interested. He's just giving you that little plug there. He's just joking, So sure enough, BF called me right back and said, I'm in. And, and I think we could have gotten in trouble though, as an extra coach on the sidelines. Because he did give Brian Holcomb a little push, a little kick in the tail in that semifinal game, and we gave up a few. But You know, it's the Kelly family has just meant so much to my family. Obviously, Brian is just a wonderful friend. David I played with was a year older than me, and Brian was a year younger at Carolina. You know, and I think that's, and obviously having the opportunity to coach your two sons, two of your boys at Carolina has been so special, and Stephen is now captain for us, senior year. And fortunate for us, we have more Kellys down the pike. Can't really talk about them right now, but Timmy's also a sophomore. Just went to won the U.S. What a year for him! National championship and a world championship. So I'm thankful for your family, just how much you've given to the game of lacrosse. And you know, when you talk about these situations and maybe tragedies in your life that you go through, having an opportunity to have great friends and great people in your life to help you get through those moments is incredible. And the Kelly family has been nothing short of fantastic for us.
Thank you, Jim. Just two more questions. One, the team Bible study, what would you tell these coaches out here about your team Bible study, how it works? And, you know, would you encourage other teams to consider it? What would you say about it?
Well, that was the biggest thing for us was, you know, for me, it was about two things for these young men. And they have an unbelievable platform to give back. And what I mean by that is getting involved in the community. So community service activities, I think, are huge. We do over 400 hours of community service each year. And I just feel that these guys in a bubble of college athletics and college sports, they have that opportunity, they have that gift. They're on television. All these kids, whether it's at UNC Children's Hospital or other, the opportunity to give back and to change a life is an incredible gift. So that was number one for me. And number two was just to open the door to an opportunity to learn more about the Lord and their own journey, just to listen. And again, when we started, it was two coaches and two players, and the players have taken over. You know, like I said, 15, 20 kids. They have a dinner. It's Chipotle is their dinner, and then on a Wednesday night, and they run it. And Patrick Kelly ran it last year, and Stephen is spearheading it this year, and it's just fantastic. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for kids to learn a little bit more about their faith.
Awesome. All right, one last question. Big game today over at M&T. Army, Navy, who do you got? Who do you want, who do you got?
I think Army's going to break the streak. Sorry.
Wow. It could be that kind of year. A lot of people, a lot of
But
upsets.
yeah, there were a lot. See, I'm for the underdog. Unseeded underdog.
But,
6 losses.
It should be fun.
So you know, I didn't get an opportunity to say this yesterday, but Henry Ciccarone had 6 losses in 7 years. We had 6 losses this year. That's impressive. 7 years, 6 losses. It's like, wow.
That is incredible.
But like Willie Scroggs said to me, he said, you know, back then there were 3 teams that could win the national championship. Now there's 25. So,
Which is exciting. Well, everybody, let's give it up for Coach Joe Breschi.